Hello, viewers. My name is Zach Hardy, and this is my review of USW Wednesday Night Intensity on August or from August 12th, 2015. Fuck. Better edit that title because it was from the 12th, not the 15th. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, first, as always, follow me on Twitter at Zachary Sarah for updates on the channel and whatever else. And if you have any questions wrestling related for the Hardiac Wrestling Podcast or any non-wrestling related questions for the Hardiac Questions and Answers series, as always, send them to unitards@gmail.com. That is unitards with two Z's at the end at gmail.com, and I will get to them in a future episode. But for right now, let's stick to Wednesday Night Intensity. It wasn't a bad show. It wasn't the best you could have possibly done with your lineup. It was an average show. It was a decent show. Um, One complaint that I have about this is that we're getting to a point in USW where rivalries are being made too quickly. There are at this point in time with Capital Carnage, we had 5 weeks until Capital Carnage from the first time we got Intensity, but now we're 3 weeks away, and we've already gone through a lot of ideas. Excuse me, I'm sorry. A lot of ideas for the storylines, and that leads up to Capital Carnage. And a very big problem going on right now with USW is they're setting up feuds and rivalries and matches for Capital Carnage too far away from the date of the pay-per-view, too far away from Capital Carnage's date. Capital Carnage goes live on August 30th, 2015, and the booking and the feuds and all that shit for Capital Carnage were settled back. A couple of them were settled on July 29th. So that's over a month away from the pay-per-view. And it's becoming a very big problem with USW shows in general that they start building up to their big events, not even just their big events, but they build up, excuse me, to their events too quickly. Like 5 weeks beforehand, you'll already have the main event settled out. And I'm glad they waited until the 4th or until 4 weeks away, because if they stayed at 5 weeks away, we'd be running out of options. But with USW, just one thing that I wanted to point out was they make their feuds too quickly to the point where sometimes the same thing gets recycled over again. Like the same type of thing, like excuse me, an interview is what holds, the feud's timepiece for the week. But then the next week is another promo or another interview or whatever. And it's just getting very repetitive. And it especially happens on those long booking droughts. So something like the Outcast 2015 special, where we had 5 weeks in between, but excuse me, you had 2 weeks to build up to Outcast, and then after Outcast you had 2 weeks to build up to Ultimate Consequence. Something like that gives you a fresh, innovative way to book your pay-per-views and to book your feuds and rivalries and matches for the next show. I think the WWE does all right with that. I mean, I think NXT does that all right with that. I don't think the WWE has really mastered that. Sorry, TNA doesn't have any pay-per-views that they book towards or any special events that they book towards, so they can't really be held into contention. But out of those three main things that I've even discussed on this channel, USW and the WWE both have that very big same problem, and it's a very big problem. They just leave too much time in between their booking of the feud, the start of the feud, and the match between the two at the next pay-per-view. So something like a build-up throughout a couple weeks without that feud being made official, and then 2 or 3 weeks away, you start making that match final for that pay-per-view. I think that's something that really needs to be enforced here in USW, and I think it would be for the better. But without further ado, let's get into the show. We start off with Intensity, number 134, with Western Light opening up the show, walking down to the ring, calling Capital Carnage 2015 the biggest summer event in USW history, and rightly it is. I mean, we have Western Light versus Alexander Rodden as the main attraction, USW champion versus USW World Heavyweight champion. And then you have all these other matches, and let me get, get here. You've got all these matches. You got Ash versus Wayne Porter for the International Championship as another mid-card match. You got Hernasli with Amor versus Crimson Red for the Extreme Championship, which should be interesting. You've got Ezra Hills and Benny Franklin versus the Martin Brothers. You've got Anarchy versus Prophecy for the Blue Belt Championship. And you've got, I believe, Morbid versus Yo-Yo Joe for the Morbid versus Yo-Yo Joe in general. After tonight, you had Seth versus James. You had Simon Saint versus Cannon. You had Titanfall versus the Blackout, and I believe you have Lone Wolf versus Mashigeta. And I think those are the big matches going into Capital Carnage. So it's already a stacked card, which is a very good thing. May I give you that? But it's just you've left so much time in between this booking, and it's kind of becoming repetitive over the weeks. So since this is the biggest show in USW's summer event, I guess, chronology, if that's the right word to use, calling this the biggest summer event in USW history kind of fits the bill. I mean, you have the big attraction being your champion versus champion main event. You still have your top guy. You still have your other top guys, Mashigeta and Lone Wolf. You've got Cannon and Simon Saint. And then you've got those mid-card title matches with Ash versus Wayne Porter in a technical and high-flying bout. You got Crimson Red and Hernasli in a physical brawl type of bout. You got the best tag team you have right now, Ezra Hills and Benny Franklin, going against the best sibling tag team you've had in USW with the Martin Brothers. I think they're really the only sibling tag team as of yet. Don't be surprised if we have like a Drew Akron, Philip Akron type combination later on. And then you have Anarchy vs. Prophecy, which is going to be selling a lot of the tickets that people, I guess a lot of Blue Belt Championship fans, if there are such a thing, that don't like care for much of the show. That kind of sets the bill for some of them. And you still got a handicap match, which could be like the kickoff match between Titanfall and the Blackout. You've got your prime dark fucking nightmarish type persona with Morbid going up against your possibly one of the biggest not airheads, but the biggest arrogant guys in Yo-Yo Joe on your roster. It's awesome. You got a whole special section dedicated to Dustin Raymond's open challenges. You've got Seth versus James and another James versus trying to take down the demon, the psychopathic freak, I guess. And you got all this good shit going for Capital Carnage, so this is a big event. So, tells everybody a few things. First, Alexander Rodden, USW champion, not present tonight, so we're not going to get any interference throughout the night. And I guess it's interesting to see, every so often the USW champion not present for Intensity. I think that brings up some good chances for his opponent to be built up in character-wise and for their feud to be built up. And also that Kyle Reese has made the main event for tonight's show, World Heavyweight Champion Western Light, teaming with Titanfall to face the newly reformed tag team of Philip Akron and Chris Ross, now named the Blackout. He then leaves the ring. The rest of the show gets underway. Few things I liked from the opening promo. He kind of set the bill for Capital Carnage. He pretty much just flat out, he flat out said unless this was like some kind of ploy in which Alexander Rodden came back later in the night, which to my knowledge, I don't think he did. Kyle Reese, he announces the main event that Kyle Reese has made. World Heavyweight Champion, Western Light, teams with Titanfall to face the new Philip Ackern, new Chris Ross, the Blackout. Pretty cool name as well. Leaves the ring. Rest of the show gets underway. No interference, no prime candidate coming in and attacking him. Just a simple, I'm here to say this, and this is what's going to happen, and I'm going to leave now. Simple as that. Perfect. We get into the first match. Prophecy versus Simon Saint. Prophecy defeats Simon Saint. It was I don't know. It was more of a more of what you would expect from two technical wrestlers battling it out with the addition of some high flying moves. You know, Simon Saint, with a springboard dive over the top rope onto Prophecy. You had one of those Simon Saint flips off the back or the top of the turnbuckle into a backflip, runs against the other turnbuckle, runs and fucking clotheslines Prophecy in the face, and then Prophecy has his own moves where he springboards off the ropes and into one of those Pele kicks or one of those enziguris. It was a great match, and the ending, Prophecy was setting up Simon Saint for the limb lock, and Anarchy runs down, grabs Prophecy as a distraction, which leads to Prophecy ducking Simon Saint's attempt at a clothesline. Excuse me. That all gets away because Anarchy is trying to get Prophecy to be distracted, so he's against the ropes and he gets clotheslined by Simon Saint, and Simon Saint wins. But he ducks the attempt at a clothesline from Simon Saint and hits Simon Saint, excuse me, with a slingshot. Excuse me. That looked dirty. I'm sorry. Hits Simon Saint with a slingshot takedown for the pinfall win. Then gets on the microphone, tells Anarchy he's using his rematch to face Anarchy for the Blue Belt Championship at Capital Carnage 2015. So, as again, what you can possibly have for your main mid-card attraction, Anarchy versus Prophecy. That's great. That's something that you would want to see. Technical wrestler with the addition of some powerhouse maneuvers against technical wrestler with the addition of some high-flying maneuvers and some submission holds. That's great. So we've got a pretty interesting, a pretty interesting mid-card attraction. So that's always great. And then we get into a promo. It's Ezra Kills and Manny Franklin, the USW Tag Team Champions, with an interview. And it's about how they are even more motivated to destroy the Martin Brothers at Capital Carnage 2015 than they were before. I know I didn't give you guys a review of Intensity last week, or from last week, but you really didn't miss much. But what they are talking about is USW Tag Team Champions Ezra Hills and Benny Franklin beat Simon Saint and Cannon last week. And Ezra Hills and Benny Franklin then got attacked by the Martin Brothers, and Hills is hit by George Martin with the last name. Franklin was hit by Alex Martin with the unique wind, and the Martin Brothers turned heel. So, as everybody expected, or as many people expected, a face versus face tag team championship match. We're not going to get that. We're going to get face Ezra Kills and Benny Franklin against heel Martin Brothers at Capital Carnage for the tag team championships. That's interesting. I don't think we've ever seen the Martin Brothers as a tag team turn heel. I think the only time we had a Martin brother turn heel was George Martin turning heel on Alex Martin. But now they both turn heel as a unit, and we get a heel tag team gunning for, once again, the face tag team's championship gold. So that's interesting, and that's what they're talking about when it comes to, excuse me, being motivated, even more motivated, excuse me, to destroy the Martin Brothers at Capital Carnage. So we get into the second match. Dustin Raymond's Open Challenge. All right. Don't know why he didn't start off with this match instead of Prophecy versus Simon Singh, which was a much better match than this. But that's fine. It was a physical match. Dustin Raymond was just landing haymakers to Yo-Yo Joe, and Joe would always come back with this kind of technical maneuver. And he was just Joe was on top of his game tonight. Well, I'm sorry, last night. And it was really awesome being able to see Yo-Yo Joe, getting Irish whipped into the ropes and then backing off, jumping over Dustin Raymond, excuse me, landing with a front whirl back into the ropes, and then hitting a diving bulldog clothesline. That it was always great to see Joe, even though he's a heel, pulling off those spectacular reversals over and over and over again, and that is what led to Yo-Yo Joe winning. So Yo-Yo Joe beats Dustin Raymond. Interesting. That's cool. I don't care. And afterwards, we get Yo-Yo Joe calling out Morbid for attacking him last week on Intensity. Morbid appears on the Motiontron, tells Joe he's not going to lay his hands on him unless he accepts Morbid's challenge for a match against Joe at Capital Carnage 2015. Joe accepts. Morbid appears behind him and hits him with a choke slam before walking away as Joe lies in the middle of the ring. Perfect type of deception between Morbid and Yo-Yo Joe. I mean, Morbid always brings these new characteristics into his character that he may use often or he may use once and then never use again. But this was something new that I don't think he's used before. But tricking Joe into getting all hyped up to beat down Morbid. And Morbid telling Joe, hey, you know what? We're not going to fight until you accept a match with me at Capital Carnage. And I mean, Joe probably would have accepted, even if he didn't say, "Oh, I'm not gonna fight you until you accept the challenge." He probably still would have accepted the challenge. Sorry, excuse me. Which doesn't really make much sense with Joe's character. But after accepting the challenge, he kind of deceives Joe by making him think, "Oh, he's in the Motiontron. He's not going to be here. He's not going to attack me because he's not sure whether or not I'm going to say yes. So I'm going to say yes." And then just gets pummeled with a choke slam down directly into the mat. So Morbid gets what he wants and hits a choke slam on Joe. That's cool. And we jump into a promo, which is cut by Seth, challenging James to a match at Capital Carnage. But Seth makes the challenge for the match to be a chain cuff match. And afterwards, since we've never really heard anything of that extent in USW, the commentators shedded light onto this match a little bit, and it's apparently a match where both performers are locked into a chain on one arm each, kind of like the Rusev John Cena match from Extreme Rules, that crappy match. But it's less of that, but it's more like a cowboy strap match or a cowbell match or whatever. Dusty Rhodes and Randy Orton or something like that, where you're attached to a rope with a cuff on each arm, or not on both of your arms, but you have a cup or a cuff on one of your arms, and the opponent has a cuff on one of their arms, and they have to fight like that the entire time. So they can use the rope to their advantage. They can do something like what Rusev did and go over the top rope. Do something different and force pain onto their opponent just by using that chain. And after they're connected to a chain on one arm each, they are connected by the chain throughout the entire match. So it's pretty much just a regular match where the only thing you can is it could be a no disqualification match where you can use anything, but I'm thinking it's more like a singles match where there are disqualifications, there are countouts, but maybe not countouts, but the only weapon you can use are either the cuffs or the chain itself. And it goes on like a regular match. You either win by a submission or a pinfall or even a knockout or a disqualification or a countout, whatever. However you decide to do this. And and that's pretty cool with me. I mean, I have no problem with it. Chain cuff matches or cowboy strap match or leather strap matches or a Bulgarian chain match or whatever. I mean, they don't really have a history of being a great match type or match gimmick. Um, but it's interesting and it's new and it's different. So I guess USW is kind of shedding away from that usual spot of sorry. They're moving away from that traditional I don't know. They're that traditional fight, no disqualification match, okay. No count out match, okay. That different type of shit where you have now it's kind of like you have something holding you back, which is not something you usually have. Um, that's interesting. Well, I mean, unless you're like afraid of heights, in that case, a wooden metal match or a ladders match or a scaffold match, something that involves heights wouldn't be. I mean, it would keep you back or it would hold you back, or a submission match in which you have like a bummed arm, so you can't really do many submission maneuvers. You can't even really do an ankle lock. I mean, that would hold you back. There are specific things with wrestlers in that matches hold them back, but this case, no matter it does, it's not it's not a matter of fear. It's not a matter of a phobia. It's not a matter of anything really except for the fact that you are physically held back, and it's not like you can cure that or anything like that. You are physically held back and there's no way out of it unless you break the chain. In that case, the whole point of the match is turned to shit. But anyway, moving into next thing. But wait a minute. Something else that's kind of crazy is, I mean, I could imagine Seth as the psychotic demon character wanting to have a chain cuff match because he can use a chain as a weapon. He makes sure his prey is not too far away from the predator. But at the same time, Seth can't really do many of his high offensive type maneuvers, and it's kind of like he's held back by it as well. So I mean, you can work that in as, oh, he wants a challenge, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of interesting the way that Seth was the one to propose this match and not James in an extent. But anyway, we go to the third match. This is the match between the USW Tag Team Champions, Ezra Kills and Benny Franklin, beating Hernastley and Amor. And afterwards, well, first let's get into the match. I mean, the match was it was pretty much just like a regular, tag team match. Physical, all four participants got involved in the match in some way, and it was all interesting. It was cool. One negative thing that I have to say about this is that Amor he was the participant in which the match did not get to see most of. You didn't get to see very much of Amor. I'm sorry. Hernastley, for the most part, when they were in a losing situation, Hernastley was the one getting beaten down. Anyway, Hernastley was the one getting beaten down, or Hernastley was the one in charge, and then he would tag in Amor, who would do a couple high-flying maneuvers, then tag back in Hernastley. Sorry. So I'm not sure if Amor is like hurt or something like that, or if he's being held back by something. I don't know, but it was an alright match. And Ezra Kills and Benny Franklin got the win. And then afterwards, the Martin brothers attempt to attack Hills and Franklin, but they both fight back and force the Martin brothers to retreat, then hold up the USW Tag Team Championships as a sign of dominance over the Martin brothers as they retreat, as if we have not seen any, I'm this USW blank champion. I am holding up my title as a signifying glance of dominance. I probably didn't word that right. Anyway, Whatever. Getting to the next promo, James comes backstage in a segment telling James is backstage in a segment telling Seth that he accepts his challenge for a match at Capital Carnage. Nothing more. He doesn't even say, and I'm going to beat you, excuse me, or I'm going to end your career, or I'm going to kick your ass. Doesn't say that. He just says, I accept your challenge. Cool. No typical fucking, I'm going to beat you this Sunday, or I'm going to take away your title cliches. There are cars outside. Anyway, going into the fourth match, Zach Hardy defeats Capital. Looking back at it, and I was busy last night, which is why I didn't give you a review last night. So I watched it from like 6 to 8, and I had to go back and look up shit just to make sure I was looking all this shit right. So that way I gave you a review at this point in time. Anyway, it was a physical match. It was more like a brawl instead of a contested match. There was not many grappling maneuvers. It was more like punch, 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 kick, 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 punch, 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 kick, 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 knee to the head, take down, punch while you're down. It was more like a brawl, but a contested brawl, if there's any such a thing. And Capital missed the Capital punishment, got taken down at the leg, and I hit the Hardiac jaw on Capital for the pinfall win. I got on the microphone and I challenged Double XL to a match at Capital Carnage. And then Double XL walks out and accepts Hardy's challenge. I'm reading my own notes. Leading to Capital, getting on the microphone and challenging both Hardy and Double XL to a match at Capital Carnage. To which both of us accept. And then Kyle Reese walks down and tells everyone that at Capital Carnage, to resolve all this feud and bickering, Zach Hardy will face Double XL and Capital in a three-ways match. That's it. Okay. And we get into the next promo. And I'm about to sneeze. Next promo. Ash asks at... Next promo, Ash asks Kyle Reese for a match tonight to make some more momentum for himself going into Capital Carnage. Kyle Reese grants his request, makes the next match Ash versus James, then tells him to get ready fast because the match is next. Cool. Then we get into an interview, a promo, interview with Blackout about their match with Fall at Capital Carnage, being somewhat of a welcome back because of the fact that the team is now back in action. After Capital Carnage, they are going for the USW Tag Team Championships. All right, that's what you want from this kind of interview. We are going to beat down this one person, and then our next goal, after finishing the goal to beat this fucking douchebag or cunt sack or whatever down, we want the tag team titles. Understand? Good. And that's it. Going for the USW tag team titles. Whoop-de-doo. Next match, fifth match. James versus the international champion Ash. It was more of a high-flying match with the addition of some submission maneuvers, an arm bar or behind the back arm bar, or I guess somewhat of a surfboard type maneuver, or a chokehold, or anything. And then there was some points where, of course, Ash brought justice to heels, where he kind of did that dirty type of pulling the hair back or gouging at the eyes or ripping the jaw down from the bone, or jaw down from the... You get it. And it was awesome. And James beat Ash, which was cool. And then Dwayne Porter appears in the Motion Tron tells Ash that he is looking better than him going into Capital Carnage. So Ash goes into this match to build momentum, and he ends up losing momentum. Character development is actually going pretty well, because now you got Ash versus Dwayne Porter. Who am I kidding? This feud isn't doing much for me. I mean, Ash and Dwayne Porter, they're great competitors. They've always been great competitors, but this feud is just seeming bland to me. It seems like there's not enough attention going to this feud, and so in turn, it becomes bland, and it's not the feud to look out for, and it's not even really a sleeper. I mean, this match can be a good match. I'm just waiting to find out what, how good of a match it's going to be. Whatever. And then we get a promo. And that is Cannon asking Kyle Reese if he can be a part of the main event tag team match tonight. Kyle Reese tells Cannon that he will be teaming up the World Heavyweight Champion Western Light Titanfall to face off against Phil Backer and Chris Ross and his opponent for Capital Carnage, Simon Saint, which leads to the sixth match and the main event of the evening. Philip Akron, Chris Ross, and Simon Saint defeat the World Heavyweight Champion Western Light, Titanfall, and Cannon. And it was just a clusterfuck at the end of the match. But the match was all right. Philip Akron and Chris Ross got more of the show, and while Philip Akron and Chris Ross got more of the action for their side, it was down to more like Western Light and Cannon, as Titanfall and Simon Saint didn't really do all that much for their team, other than kind of pick apart the leftovers. Western Light then took advantage of a distracted Simon Saint and hit the lantern, and I'm sorry, and no, I'm fucking messing up everything up. Phil Backron took advantage of a distracted Titanfall and hit the acorn on him and covered him for the win. But then afterwards was a brawl, and it was Chris Ross and Philip Akron throwing Titanfall out of the ring. Then Cannon hit a drop kick on both of them, throwing them outside or knocking them outside the ring. And then Simon Saint hit a super kick on Cannon, knocked him over the top rope. Then Western Light took advantage of a distracted Simon Saint and hit the lantern on him, leaving Western Light the only one standing as he walks up the ramp holding USW champion, the World Heavyweight Championship high above his head to end the show. That's awesome. That's a way to end the show, and I couldn't be much happier with it. I mean, it was awesome. It was a great match, and I'm glad it went through. So that's pretty much all I have for Intensity. So all in all, it was an all right show. I would give it 3 stars. I would watch it again, but just to kind of understand a little bit more. If I understood enough, I probably wouldn't go back and watch it. I would probably just leave it to be bookmarked at some point in time, just as a reminder of this whatever. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So that was my review of Wednesday Night Intensity from August 12th, 2015. So thank you guys for watching. As always, follow me on Twitter at Zachary Serra, at ZACHARYSERRA. For updates on the channel and whatever and what else not. And as always, if you have any question, excuse me, any wrestling related questions for the Hardiac Wrestling Podcast, or any non-wrestling related questions for the Hardiac Questions and Answers series, please send them to unitards@gmail.com. That's unitards with 2 Z's at the end at gmail.com, and I will get to them in a future episode of either shows. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching. That was my review on the August 12th, 2015 edition of USW Wednesday Night Intensity. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to like, favorite, and subscribe for more. I'm Zach Hardy, signing off.